Carlton Davis is the Detroit Lions' new cornerback one. He is the guy that twice a year will go toe-to-toe with DJ Moore, toe-to-toe with Justin Jefferson, toe-to-toe with Christian Watson, and all of the other wide receiver ones that make their way through the Motor City. And he has some big expectations on his hands. He is a player that is expected to be a top-tier cornerback on one of the Detroit Lions' best teams of the century and one of the best teams in the NFL. Carlton Davis, after the struggles of the secondary a year ago, has a lot of expectations to turn this thing around and has a lot of expectations to be the guy in Detroit. And today we're going to take a look at Carlton Davis, take a look at whether or not he should be that guy and whether or not the expectations will be met, exceeded, or not quite reached this season. So let's take a look at Carlton Davis, who through his first 6 years of his NFL career has played in Tampa Bay as a second-round selection. However, this offseason, he was traded to the Detroit Lions for a third-round pick. In his 6-year career, Carlton Davis has over 324 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 73 passes defended, 9 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles, and 4 fumble recoveries. And while he does have a little bit of a problem staying on the field and does have a little bit of a health concern, he is a player that still consistently plays 12 to 13 games a season, as well as having some moderate postseason success as well. Now, 2023 was not the best year for Carlton Davis. He allowed a 61.4% completion percentage, a 732 yards through the year, 4 touchdowns through the year, but I think it really partially came down to him being in a very poor scheme for the skill set that he has. Carlton Davis is a press man corner. Carlton Davis is built like a press man corner, plays his best football in press man coverage. He is a press man cornerback, while the Tampa Bay Buccaneers played primarily zone coverage a season ago. And the difference between Carlton Davis in man coverage and zone coverage is the difference in night and day. Right, Carlton Davis in 2023, while in man coverage, allowed a 60% completion percentage, 0 touchdowns through the year, a 75.1 passer rating, while having a 68.8 Pro Football Focus grade, which isn't elite, but is still a pretty solid grade. And it's not just Carlton Davis either. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers a season ago, while running man coverage, allowed a 40% completion percentage and 0 touchdowns through the first 2 months of the NFL season. While in off coverage, they allowed a 73% completion percentage and 9 touchdowns through the air. Now, this is again through the end of October and the beginning of November from the article that I read, but that is a staggering difference between press man coverage and off man coverage, whether it be off man or off zone. Carlton Davis and really the Tampa Bay secondary in general was built for press coverage, and yet they were never used that way. In fact, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on the season played just 38% of man coverage, and not all of that was press man coverage. Now, flip that to the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions play a ton of man coverage. Through the first 3 years of his NFL coaching career as a defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn has ran more coverage than anybody in the NFL, which is a perfect scheme fit for what Carlton Davis likes to do. Now, again, this offseason, Carlton Davis was traded from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the Detroit Lions. The Lions sent Tampa Bay a third-round selection in this year's NFL draft, while the Detroit Lions in return received Carlton Davis as well as 2 sixth-round picks, one in 2024 and one in 2025. And Carlton Davis, I think, is the Detroit Lions cornerback that they have been looking for. I think he fits the scheme as perfectly as you can. He brings the identity that the Detroit Lions want. And yeah, you could say that last year Carlton Davis had a little bit of a down year. Yeah, he allowed a lot of yards. Yeah, he allowed 4 touchdowns. But as I said, I don't think Carlton Davis was a great scheme fit for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a season ago. Actually, if you go back a couple of seasons to 2021, where they had Todd Bowles on the defensive coordinator, and he was really the guy calling the defense, they played a lot more man coverage. And Carlton Davis had arguably the best season of his career, allowing just under 500 yards and 3 touchdowns on the year, while being the cornerback 1 on a Super Bowl winning roster. right? Carlton Davis is a super talented cornerback. And while he's not going to be a top 10 or a top 5 cornerback in the NFL this year, I do think he will be a sizable step up from what the Detroit Lions had a season ago and where the Detroit Lions secondary was going into 2023. Taking a look at this statistic in particular is what really makes me think that Carlton Davis is the right guy for Detroit. Carlton Davis a season ago ranked 9th in the NFL in a tight coverage grade by Pro Football Focus, meaning of all the cornerbacks in the NFL, Carlton Davis was considered to be in tight coverage as the 9th best cornerback in the NFL at doing so. He did so, I believe, at a 29.6% of the time, meaning nearly 30% of his coverage snaps, he was considered to be in tight coverage, ranking him top 10 in all of NFL cornerbacks. Flip that to the Detroit Lions, who a season ago, their best cornerback in this statistic was Jerry Jacobs, who ranked 39th in the NFL and less than a 5th of his coverage snaps being in tight coverage. And I believe his statistic was just under 20%, meaning in less than a 20% of the time, less than 20% of the time, he was not in tight coverage. Carlton Davis did it at about a 30% rate, which is a significant upgrade. And obviously the difference between the 40th best cornerback in the NFL and a cornerback that was ranked inside the top 10. This is a player that if you look at the base numbers might not impress you. But if you look at the tape, you look at the way he's played, and you look at all of the tight coverage that he's had over the last couple of years, Carlton Davis is a serious step up from any of the cornerbacks that the Detroit Lions had a season ago. You know, taking a look at Carlton Davis versus Cam Sutton, Carlton Davis last year just once again gave up 61.5% completion percentage, 732 yards, and 4 touchdowns while playing in a poor scheme in what I would consider was a pretty down year for Carlton Davis. Cam Sutton, on the other hand, allowed a 67% completion percentage, 888 yards, and 5 touchdowns, while admittedly being forced to play on the boundary where he was not comfortable. So if you compare the two players in their situations, in their skill sets, and in their abilities, Carlton Davis is a better man coverage corner. He's better in press. He has better physicality. He's more built for the outside. While Cam Sutton does have better versatility, it really isn't that big of an upgrade over what Carlton Davis can do for your defense. Davis has the experience in the slot, and although he hasn't played it nearly as much as Cam Sutton, he can still play it if the Detroit Lions ask him to do so. If they ask him to follow Justin Jefferson or CeeDee Lamb into the slot, he can do that, but also have a lot more confidence on the boundary that he is going to be able to take away that wide receiver one. Now, Carlton Davis is not a top 5 cornerback in the NFL. Carlton Davis is not a top 10 cornerback in the NFL. But the Detroit Lions don't need him to be a top 5 cornerback. They don't need him to be a top 10 cornerback. They need him not to be the 32nd cornerback in the NFL. They need Carlton Davis to not be the worst starting cornerback in the NFL next season. And they need the duo of Arnold and Davis not to be the worst starting secondary cornerbacks in the NFL next season. Because realistically, that's where they were. Realistically, in 2023, the duo of Cam Sutton and Kendall Vilder, and arguably you could say Jerry Jacobs, were the worst starting boundary cornerbacks in pro football a season ago. So the Detroit Lions don't need Carlton Davis to be elite. They don't need Carlton Davis to be even a top 10 cornerback. What they need is for Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold to be a decent, a solid, even an average cornerback duo in the NFL, and a team that went to the NFC Championship game a year ago with the worst cornerback duo can only imagine how much they will succeed and how far they will go with even just an average cornerback room. Even ranking 15th, 16th in the NFL would be a massive upgrade for the Detroit Lions, and with their already superstar rushing defense and an average secondary behind them, the Detroit Lions can turn into one of the best defenses in football, and it can all start with number 24, Carlton Davis. Now, again, I think Carlton Davis was a great pickup for the Detroit Lions, a great trade for the Detroit Lions. I think he's exactly what they want him to be. He's exactly what they want in a cornerback at the position, and I think he's a player that will be very, very impressive in the 2023 season. But with all of that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Just kind of an update, a deep dive into the Detroit Lions' new cornerback one and how well the Detroit Lions fit Carlton Davis for this season. But with all of that being said, That is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below your expectations for Carlton Davis, where you think he and Terrion Arnold will rank as a cornerback duo in 2024, and overall, just what your expectations are for the Detroit Lions' newest #1 guy. But with all of that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. If you have yet to subscribe, please go down and do so. We are 19 subscribers away from 4,000, and we are looking to hit that before the start of training camp in July. So if you have yet to do so, please go down below, subscribe to the channel, join the community, and come back every single day for daily Detroit Lions content. But with that being said, that's all I got for you guys right now. Thank you all so very much for watching, and until next time, and as always, go Lions.